Numbers never lie. That's what my father always told me. While my brother James was learning to smooth clients and charm investors, I was learning the language of spreadsheets and financial statements. Dad understood. He'd built Sullivan Global Enterprises from nothing, and he knew that behind every successful company was someone who understood its true story through its numbers. The real power isn't in the boardroom, Emily, he'd say, reviewing quarterly reports with me late into the night. It's in knowing what these numbers mean. They tell you everything, if you know how to listen. I was listening now, staring at my computer screen at 2 a.m. My office dark except for the soft glow of monitors. The numbers were telling me something was very wrong at Sullivan Global. Still here, sis. James's voice made me jump. My brother stood in the doorway, impeccable in his tailored suit despite the late hour. You know, normal people go home sometimes. I minimized the spreadsheet quickly, but not before noting the discrepancy in the Asian subsidiary's accounts. $50 million that seemed to appear and disappear like magic. Just finishing up the quarterly audit, I said carefully. Someone has to keep track of the details. James laughed, that rich, confident laugh that had charmed countless investors and business partners. Always the diligent one. That's our Emily, stuck in the details while the rest of us focus on the big picture. The big picture. Like the mysterious new investors James had brought in 3 months ago, right after Dad's stroke. Like the sudden restructuring of our Asian operations. Like the offshore accounts I discovered hidden in layers of shell companies. The board meetings on Monday, James continued, walking into my office uninvited, as always. I'll need the financial reports by tomorrow afternoon. There are some irregularities I need to check first, I said, watching his reaction carefully, especially in the Asian divisions. Just clean it up and sign off. He cut me off, his smile never wavering. You know how these international operations can be. Lots of moving parts. Moving parts. Like the $50 million that kept moving in ways that defied both accounting principles and legal regulations. James, I started. As CFO, I have responsibility. As CFO. He laughed again, but there was an edge to it now. Emily, let's be real. You're CFO, because Dad felt guilty about giving me the CEO position. We both know who really runs this company. The words stung, but I kept my face neutral. 15 years I'd worked here, starting in the accounting department right out of college. I'd earned my CPA, then my MBA, worked my way up while James spent his time at charity galas and golf courses. When Dad promoted me to CFO 5 years ago, it wasn't guilt. It was recognition of the 100-hour weeks I'd put in, the millions I'd saved the company through careful financial management. The numbers don't lie, James, I said quietly, echoing Dad's words. And these numbers are telling me something's wrong. His smile vanished. The numbers tell whatever story we need them to tell. That's business, sis. Maybe if you'd spent less time with your spreadsheets and more time in the real world, you'd understand that. I opened my mouth to argue, but my phone buzzed. A text from Maria, my assistant. They're deleting files from the servers, trading records, wire transfers, everything. My heart stopped. I'd asked Maria to monitor the system after hours, suspecting something like this might happen, but I'd hoped I was wrong. Hoped my own brother wouldn't. I can't sign off on these reports, I said, standing up. Not until I understand where this money is really going. James's face hardened. Actually, you won't be signing anything. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. The board has voted to terminate your position effective immediately. The board? I stared at him. There hasn't been a board meeting. Emergency session. Conference call. Your concerns about our international operations were deemed disruptive to company stability. He dropped the envelope on my desk. Clean out your office. Security will escort you out. You can't do this, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I saw 2 security guards appear in the doorway. Dad trusted me too. Dad's in a hospital bed, James snapped. And this company needs real leadership, not some accountant obsessing over decimal points. Get out, Emily. You're done here. I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and for the first time, I saw him clearly. The designer suit couldn't hide the desperation in his eyes, the slight tremor in his hands. Whatever he was involved in, it was bigger than I'd imagined. Silently, I gathered my personal items into a box. Pictures of Dad and me at my MBA graduation. The calculator he'd given me on my first day of work. The family photo from better days, before Mom passed, before James decided success meant something different than Dad had taught us. Your company laptop and phone stay here, James said, watching me pack. And Emily? Don't try anything stupid. Remember who has the power here. I walked out without a word, past the security guards, past Maria's empty desk, past the portrait of Dad in the lobby. In my car, I pulled out my personal phone and sent 2 messages. First, to Maria, download everything. Use the secure server we discussed. Then to a number I'd hoped I'd never have to use. Robert Torres, my old college roommate, now a senior investigator with the SEC. Remember when you said you owed me a favor? I need it now. Finally, I opened my briefcase and removed the external hard drive I'd been updating daily for the past 3 months, ever since I'd first noticed the discrepancies, ever since James had started having private meetings with people who didn't show up in any official records. The numbers tell you everything, Dad's voice echoed in my memory, if you know how to listen. I'd been listening, Dad, and on Monday, everyone else would hear what the numbers had been telling me. James thought he'd won, thought firing me would silence the questions, bury the truth under layers of corporate bureaucracy and creative accounting. He forgot one crucial detail. I'd been tracking every number, every transaction, every lie for months, and I had proof of all of it. In my rearview mirror, I watched as the lights of Sullivan Global's headquarters grew distant. James would be calling emergency meetings now, trying to cover his tracks, but he'd never been good with details. Never understood that true power wasn't in the boardroom, it was in the numbers. Monday's board meeting would change everything. James just didn't know it yet. The weekend stretched before me like a battlefield waiting to be mapped. Sitting in my home office, surrounded by financial documents and hard drives, I began to piece together the puzzle I'd been collecting for months. Maria, what's our status? I asked during our secure video call. My assistant, though technically now my ex-assistant, had worked through the night. I got everything, she confirmed, dark circles under her eyes. Trading records, wire transfers, emails. James didn't just delete files. He tried to rewrite them, but he doesn't know about our backup server. I smiled grimly. James had always underestimated the tech nerds, as he called them. What about the Asian subsidiaries? That's where it gets interesting. Maria shared her screen, showing a complex web of transactions. Remember that $50 million that kept disappearing? I traced it. They've been using our legitimate Asian operations as a front for money laundering. I finished, the pieces finally clicking into place. The new investors James brought in after Dad's stroke. They're using our company to clean dirty money. The scope of it was staggering. For 3 months, they've been running a sophisticated scheme, using Sullivan Global's reputation and international presence to make illegal funds appear legitimate. No wonder James had been so desperate to keep me away from the real numbers. My phone buzzed. Robert Torres from the SEC. Emily, his voice was serious. I've reviewed what you sent. This is bigger than corporate fraud. We're talking international money laundering, possible connections to organized crime. Are you sure you want to get involved? These people are destroying my father's company, I replied. I don't have a choice. Then we do this officially. I'm bringing in my team. But Emily, be careful. People like this, they don't just fire whistleblowers. After hanging up, I received an unexpected call from Samuel Wong, our longtime head of Asian operations. Miss Sullivan, he said quietly, I heard about what happened. There's something you should know. Your brother's new partners. They visited our offices last month, made certain demands. When I refused, they threatened my family. My blood ran cold. Why didn't you tell me sooner? They were watching us, but now that you're out, I have documents, records of meetings, things they didn't know I kept. Send everything, securely, and Samuel, get your family somewhere safe. Throughout Saturday, more allies emerged. Junior accountants who'd noticed discrepancies but been afraid to speak up. It's staff who'd been ordered to modify records. Even our old family lawyer, who'd resigned, rather than sign off on suspicious documents. Your father would be proud, he told me. He always said you were the one who truly understood the business. But James wasn't idle. By Saturday evening, Maria reported that he'd called an emergency executive meeting. They were planning to present a completely revised set of financial statements at Monday's board meeting, ones that would hide all traces of their illegal activities. They're going to pin any irregularities on you, Maria warned. Paint you as a disgruntled employee making false accusations. I worked through the night, organizing evidence, building an airtight case. Every transaction, every fraudulent record, every altered document carefully cataloged and cross-referenced. The numbers told a story of betrayal, greed, and corruption, but also of hubris. James and his partners had been so confident in their scheme that they'd left trails everywhere. Sunday morning brought an unexpected visitor, Lisa Chen, one of our largest legitimate investors. Something felt wrong about the recent reports, she said, sitting in my living room. The numbers didn't add up. When I asked questions, your brother gave smooth answers, but no real explanations. And now I'm worried about my investment and about George Sullivan's legacy. Your father built this company on integrity, Emily. He trusted you to protect that. I showed her some of what I'd discovered. Her face hardened as she understood the implications. The board needs to see this, she said. All of it. I'll make sure they do. But we weren't the only ones preparing for Monday. That afternoon, I received a warning from our head of security. James had hired private investigators to dig up dirt on me. They're trying to discredit you, he said. Looking for anything they can use. Bad investments, personal scandals, even old college photos. I almost laughed. Let them look. I'd spent my life focused on work, on learning the business, on making Dad proud. The worst they'd find would be some boring tax returns and a lot of late nights at the office. As Sunday evening approached, Maria called with urgent news. They're planning to announce a major restructuring tomorrow, she said. spinning off the Asian operations into a separate company. Once that happens, tracing the money will become almost impossible. I looked at the family photo on my desk. Dad, Mom, James and me at the company's 20th anniversary celebration. We were all smiling, proud of what our family had built. How had we gone from that to this? My phone buzzed with a text from James. "It's not too late to back down, sis. Take the severance package. Walk away. Some things are better left alone." I didn't reply. Instead, I sent one final email to Robert Torres, attaching the last pieces of evidence. "Everything's ready," I wrote. "Your team knows what to do." His response was immediate. "We'll be there. Just make sure the board stays in that room long enough to hear the truth." I spent the final hours of Sunday going over every detail one last time. The evidence was clear, irrefutable. But evidence alone wasn't enough. I needed to present it in a way that even James couldn't talk his way around. Dad's voice echoed in my memory. "Numbers tell stories, Emily, but it's people who have to listen." Tomorrow, they would have no choice but to listen. Tomorrow, every number, every transaction, every lie would be exposed. I picked up the family photo, touching Dad's face behind the glass. "I'll fix this," I promised. "Whatever it takes." Monday morning dawned cold and clear. I arrived at Sullivan Global's headquarters early, parking in my old spot out of habit. The security guard at the front desk, Mike, who'd watched me grow up in these halls, looked torn between duty and loyalty. "Miss Sullivan, I'm supposed to," he began. "She's with me," Lisa Chen interrupted, appearing at my side. As a major shareholder, her authority couldn't be questioned. "We're here for the board meeting." James had chosen the largest conference room for today's meeting, no doubt planning to make a show of the company's bright future. As board members filed in, I sat quietly in the back, ignoring the whispers and stares. At exactly 9 a.m., James strode in, flanked by his new partners. Men in expensive suits whose names appeared nowhere in official company records. He faltered slightly when he saw me, but recovered quickly. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began smoothly, "thank you for coming. Before we begin, I should address the elephant in the room. My sister Emily, our former CFO, has made some unfortunate accusations." "Accusations?" I stood up. "No, James. I've made discoveries, and the board needs to hear them." "Emily," he said, his smile strained, "you're not authorized to be here. Security?" "Actually," Lisa Chen interrupted, "as a major shareholder, I've invited Ms. Sullivan to present her findings. The board deserves to hear both sides." James's new partners shifted uncomfortably. One reached for his phone, but at that moment, the conference room doors opened again. Robert Torres walked in, followed by a team of SEC investigators. "Nobody leave this room," Torres announced, showing his credentials. "And please, everyone turn off your phones." "What is this?" James demanded, but I could see the fear breaking through his polished facade. "This," I said, connecting my laptop to the projector, "is what happens when you forget that numbers don't lie." For the next hour, I laid out everything. The money laundering scheme disguised as legitimate international trade, the falsified records, the threats against employees who asked questions. With each revelation, I watched James's face grow paler. "These accusations are ridiculous," one of his partners interjected. "You can't prove." "Actually," Samuel Wong's voice came through the video conference screen, "she can." Our head of Asian operations proceeded to share his own documentation, including recordings of threatening conversations. James tried one last time. The company needs this restructuring. We're expanding, growing. You're destroying everything Dad built. I cut him off. And for what? To impress these criminals? To feel powerful? You don't understand business. He spat. You never did. You were just an accountant. No, a weak voice said from the doorway. She's my daughter. Everyone turned. There, in a wheelchair pushed by his nurse, was our father. Dad? James whispered. You're supposed to be in the hospital. Lisa called me, Dad said, his voice thin but clear. Told me what was happening to my company, to my family. His eyes met mine, filled with tears and pride. Show them, Emily. Show them what you found. I pulled up the final set of documents, the complete trail of every illegal transaction, every falsified record, every dollar that had been laundered through our legitimate businesses. The SEC has everything, I announced. So do the FBI and Interpol. It's over, James. What happened next was chaos. James's partners tried to flee, but found federal agents waiting outside. James himself seemed to collapse inward, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. Dad, he pleaded, I was trying to make the company bigger better. You were trying to make yourself bigger, Dad corrected sadly. Emily understood what I've always taught. Success means nothing without integrity. The next few hours were a blur of federal agents, statements, and arrests. James and his partners were led out in handcuffs. The board voted immediately to remove him as CEO and freeze all suspicious operations. Then came the surprise. The company needs leadership it can trust, Dad announced to the board. Someone who understands both the numbers and the values this company was built on. He looked at me. Emily, will you take the position? I stared at him, then at the board members who were nodding in agreement. Dad, are you sure? He smiled. That warm, proud smile I remembered from childhood. I've never been more sure of anything. The aftermath was both easier and harder than I expected. The company's stock took a hit when the news broke, but our transparency about the situation and immediate corrective actions helped restore investor confidence. Many of James's illegal deals could be unwound, saving us from major losses. More challenging was the personal cost. James faced serious criminal charges. Mom's old friends stopped inviting us to social events. But Dad was there every step of the way, back in the office part-time, helping me rebuild what had almost been lost. 6 months later, I sat in what had been James's office, my office now, looking at the same family photo I'd kept through everything. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Ms. Sullivan? Maria entered, now officially my chief of staff. The new compliance team is ready for your review, and the Asian division reports record legitimate profits this quarter. I smiled. Dad always said, the numbers never lie. She finished with a grin. We know. That evening, I visited James in prison. He looked different, smaller somehow, without his expensive suits and confident smile. I'm sorry, he said, not meeting my eyes. I forgot what Dad taught us, about what really matters. The company's doing well, I told him. Honestly well. When you get out, if you want to learn the right way. He nodded slowly. Maybe start me in accounting. I laughed. The first real laugh we'd shared in years. We'll see. Later, having dinner with Dad in his favorite restaurant, I asked the question that had been bothering me. Did you know? When you made me CFO? that something like this might happen? He set down his fork. I knew James was charming but careless. And I knew you were not just an accountant. You were someone who understood that numbers are really about people, about trust, about doing things right. He squeezed my hand. You saved more than the company, Emily. You saved our family's legacy. Looking at him, I realized he was right. Sullivan Global wasn't just about balance sheets and profit margins. It was about the values behind the numbers, the trust we'd rebuilt, the lessons we'd learned. James had thought power came from corner offices and fancy titles, but Dad had been right all along. Real power came from understanding the truth in the numbers and having the courage to stand by that truth, no matter the cost. Today, Sullivan Global is stronger than ever. Our compliance department is the industry standard. Young accountants fight for internships here, knowing they'll learn more than just numbers. They'll learn integrity. And in my office, next to the family photo, sits a new plaque with Dad's old saying, "Numbers never lie, but it takes wisdom to hear what they're telling you." James gets out of prison next year. Yesterday, he sent me his application for an entry-level position in our accounting department. I smiled as I approved it. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone, it's about showing them a better way. One honest number at a time.